We should like to welcome all of our viewers and listeners. Today is Yud Beis Mar Cheshvan on the Jewish calendar. Yesterday was Yud Aleph Mar Cheshvan. That's the yahrzeit of Rochel Imenu. And to commemorate the yahrzeit of Rochel Imenu, as we all know, people come to Jerusalem from all parts of the world to try to participate in commemorating the day that Rochel Imenu departed the world. Of course, they closed Kever Rochel, the burial place of Rochel is closed because of the tremendous amount of people that come, but within the vicinity, everybody finds a place to pray, petition, what they call in Yiddish, Mama Rochel, Rochel our mother, and she, of course, is going to be the one that will ultimately be responsible for bringing about the Geula of entire Jewish nation. We'll speak about that a little bit later. Parshas Lech Lecho, which we read this past Shabbos, has a special significance insofar as Rochel Imenu is concerned. And at this point, we would just like to mention the name of the shiur. The title of the shiur is To Feel or Not to Feel. That is the question. So last week's opening remarks, insofar as Rashi's commentary is concerned on the Posuk Lech Lecha Ma'artzecho U'Melaretcho V'Beis Avicho, Avram Avinu was commanded to leave his land, leave his birthplace, and leave his family, and he should travel as a nomad to an unknown destination. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not reveal to him what his destination is. So Rashi says on Lech Lecha, Toivascha Olahanoscha, for your benefit and for your good. So the question naturally arises, and there was a story that by Hasidic tradition was accepted for over 250 years, that once Reb Nochem Chernobyl, who was a great, outstanding Hasidic leader who was supposed to take over from the Maggid Mezerich to be the de facto leader of the entire Hasidic movement, but he refused due to his humility and modesty. Anyway, he came to a city, Zhitomil, where he had a very close friend, Reb Zev Wolf, who was the Rav of Zhitomil. Reb Nochem Chernobyl, of course, is well known, not only in Hasidic circles, but so far as all of Judaism is concerned. His classic sefer, Me'orei Nayim, and his very, very dear Yedid Nefesh, Zev Wolf Mizhitomil, wrote a sefer or a mayor. As soon as he came to the city, so there was a terrible, terrible accusation. Of course, it was not true. That was made against him by enemies of Judaism. Terrible accusation. It's called in Lashon HaKodesh Alilas Dam. People informed about certain things that he did which were not true, and he was taken to prison. For 90 days, Reb Zev Wolf tried to visit him. Was not successful. Only after 90 days he was successful, and he came to visit him. And in the middle of the visit, a very strange phenomenon occurred. A woman appeared. No one knows how she appeared to this day, obviously. Reb Zev Wolf, Reb Nochem Chernobyl did not know, and she asked the question that everyone asked. If this is considered by all the commentators to be one of the 10 unique trials and tribulations which the Hashgacha administered to Avram Avinu, it's a trial and a tribulation to see whether he will succeed in this trial, in this test. Will he pass the test, or will he not pass the test? That is the question. So she asked, how could it be for his benefit and for his good? They were speechless. They could not answer the question, and they were still under awe of how this mysterious woman appeared. So she answered right away. She said that Avram Avinu, everyone knows that his salient feature was chesed, was kindness. However, within the rubric of kindness, he specialized in a specific area of extending loving kindness, and that, of course, is hospitality to wayfarers. As the pasuk says, "Vayita Eshel bevel shovav yekasham b'shem Hashem." He planted a type of oasis in Beersheba. At that time, it was a desert. Vayikra b'shem Hashem, and he provided achila. He provided glina, lodging, food, and of course he accompanied all of the Yarchim as well. So she said that this upheaval from your homeland, traveling at that time especially, was an ordeal. It was back-breaking. Just to find a lodging place or to even procure food was difficult, but this was l'toivosai la'nosa. This was for Avram's benefit and for his good. Why? Because if you actually experience what it is to be a traveler without any destination, a homeless person that's looking for a little safety, shelter, and security under a roof, have some sustenance provided for him. So if you do not feel the broken heart of this type of individual, so you cannot perform hospitality and the loving kindness which is involved in this type of hospitality properly. So therefore, this was l'toivoscha or lahanoscha, to make it easier for you to provide hospitality to wayfarers who really need it, because you know exactly how a wayfarer feels. If a person has a tzara, he's in trouble, he's in need of help, we as human beings can only identify with his problem, with his trouble, his travail. We can't feel it emotionally. Impossible. We know that he's in trouble and we feel for him, but we don't have a depth feeling because we don't experience it. But if somebody went through this type of experience, so it's much easier for him to feel for that individual. So the reason HaKadosh Baruch Hu made such a trial and tribulation of Avram Avinu is that this will help him succeed in hospitality, because he knows exactly how it feels, and it will make it much easier to facilitate and implement his mission in life. As she said this, immediately she disappeared. So Reb Zev Wolf said to Reb Nochem Chernobyl, a very ridiculous insight. Why did she come? What was the whole purpose of her visit? I'll tell you, said Reb Zev Wolf, because Reb Nochem Chernobyl, the great outstanding leader of the Chernobyl Hasidim, de facto, he was a leader of the entire Hasidic movement, specialized in pidyon shvuyim, ransoming hostages, people that were kidnapped, people that were taken hostage. So he and his chaverim, his associates, undertook to ransom them. First and foremost, they went into a type of negotiation to bring down the money that the captors required. And of course, we all know this, at that point in history, the czar of a certain country would give over to Paritzim, to rich people, the right to collect taxes, and should a Jewish person succeed a little bit in business, and they would collect extremely high taxes from him, extremely high, and if he wouldn't pay, they would simply kidnap him and hold him hostage for a ransom. So, in contradistinction to Avram Avinu, the specialty, the unique loving kindness bestowed upon his fellow men was pidyon shvuyim. So now we can understand why informers falsely caused the great Menachem Chernobyl to wind up in jail, that he should feel what it's like to be in jail. He should feel how demeaning it is. He should feel how difficult it is to exist. In his case, it was in isolation, not being sure that he was going to get food. Perhaps he would die there. It was so important for him to experience it, because when it comes to pidyon shvuyim, raising money to ransom hostages and captives, so it's a very, very difficult undertaking. However, if you experience it, you feel it, so it'll make it much easier, because you realize how dismal, detrimental, existentially it is to be a captive. According to the tradition of the Chernobyl Hasidim, the woman that appeared to him was Rochel Imenu. It was Parashas Lech Lecha that this happened. The yard site, as we mentioned a moment ago, the day we commemorate the passing of Rochel Imenu, was Yud Aleph Mar Cheshvan, and that is also the day of the passing of Reb Nachum Chernobyl. So according to the Hasidic tradition, this was Rochel Imenu. And ironically, it was Rochel Imenu that helped individuals that needed to feel for others. It was her that she helped Nachum Chernobyl and everyone to realize how important it is to feel. We again understand that only by HaKadosh Baruch Hu can he actually feel the dismalness and the plight of a person in trouble. Because the Mishnah relates to us something incredible, simply amazing, outstanding, astonishing. That one of the four Haruge Malchus, somebody who was a murderer of Mechalel Shabbos, and now he's on his way to the gallows. So the Mishnah states, Amar Reb Meir, Shchina Ma'i Omeres, what does the Shchina say? The Shchina says, Kolani miroishi, Kolani mizroi. My head is heavy. I empathize. I sympathize with this person to the extent that I actually feel his pain and his suffering. That's what the Shechina says. It's not identifying with the situation, but the same feeling of pain and suffering which this individual has, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu has. And therefore it's expressed in a very descriptive form. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Kolani miroishi, kolani mizroi, my arms and my head are heavy. I feel totally dismal. I feel the pain and suffering of that individual. I am with him. And therefore the Pasuk actually says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, he's handcuffed. Like all the people that were exiled, they were handcuffed. On their feet, they also had a Denver sandal. HaKadosh Baruch Hu feels that situation the same way that the individual does. A complete merger, a complete integration of pain and suffering that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has together with that. We are not at that level. The most we could do is identify, but we have to also realize that we have to try to identify and imagine as if we are in that situation. Otherwise, the help and loving kindness that's forthcoming will be diminished immeasurably. And this, of course, is the lesson that Rebbe Meislich, the Rav of Lodz, over 100 years ago, taught us. On a winter night, he knocked on the door of the richest man in Lodz, Poznansky, and the butler opened the door, and he said, "Please come in." So Rebbe said, no, he doesn't want to come in. He wants Poznansky to come to him. So he stood in the hallway, and Poznansky did come to him, because once upon a time there was a tremendous derech eretz for Rabbonim, and Reb Eli Meisler started to speak to him. 20 minutes went by, and all of a sudden, Poznansky said that he's actually freezing. It's a winter night. There was no heat in the hallway. Please come inside my house and come to my office. So the Lodgerov said, no, that's exactly the reason why I came. I'm collecting money for the poor people that cannot afford to buy wood to fuel their homes. And they're suffering in the cold. So Poznansky understood very well, because he was able to feel what it is to suffer, even for 20 minutes, even for 15 minutes in the cold. And that is exactly, said the Lodgerov, what Rashi says. Rashi says, "In Kesev Talve Sami Esa Oni Imoch." What does it mean, Esa Oni Imoch? The Oni is with you. Why should you loan money to Chasadim? Because the Oni is with you. No, he's the object of the loving kindness, but he's not with you. So Rashi says, if you're not an Oni, you can't feel the demeaned existence, existentially, of such a poor individual, broken, like shattered pottery. And the Chazal tell us, four people are chashuvim kemes, are considered dead. One happens to be a oni, a poor person, destitute person. So what's the answer? What is the advice? How is it that we'll be able to really extend a helping hand? Very simply, Rashi says, before you give, you have to try as best you can to feel his plight, experience his suffering. So if you never experienced it, difficult now to experience it because you never felt it, but you have to feel. So at least we have ways and means of trying to have a deeper identity with that individual. Look upon yourself as if you were the needy person. And what would be your feeling? Oh, please help. I need your help. You can feel the petition. You can feel the full-blooded plea of the Yoni much better, despite the fact that if you never were in this situation, you can't feel it. So here we see the Yesod that you have to feel. And it was Rochel Imenu that she was the one that, as it were, inculcated it on Reb Nochem Chernobyl as well as the Ora Meir. However, we have to realize something else. On occasion, not to feel is the order of the day. And ironically, this was also taught to us by Rochel Imenu. And not only was it taught to us by Rochel Imenu, she's the greatest, most outstanding individual, perhaps time immemorial, who provided for us one of the most deepest insight into Torah wisdom. And if we just turn the pages, so we come to the remarkable insight of Moran Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, Rosh Yeshivas Mir, one of the greatest Goinim of the 20th century. He's not with us over 45 years. Close disciple of his. Also, he was an individual that went to Kever Rochel, the burial place of Rochel, quite often. And we were witnesses years ago when they didn't have the new edifice that they have today. They had a curtain on the outside that separated the men from the women. So the women were very close to the men, and one of the occasions that Moran Rosh Yeshiva Zechat Tzaddik V'Kadosh Livracha went to pray at Kever Rochel, that there was a woman that was shrieking and screaming. Always Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, Zechat Tzaddik V'Kadosh Livracha, the Rosh Yeshiva, brought along 5, 6 Talmidim, disciples. So anyway, he heard her say that she's already married 15 years, she's childless, and there's a big problem of Shalom Bayis, peace with her husband. And she carried on. So Chaim Shmulevitz could not tolerate it anymore. He opened the curtain separating the men from the women a little bit, and he saw her. When she saw him, she shrieked even more. So he said the following, Mini koilech mi bechi, just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Rochel, stop crying. There's going to be a reward in the activity that you undertook of praying. We'll speak about that later. The ultimate redemption will come about. The merit of Rochel Imenu. And within 1 year, you will have a child, and it will be a boy. And I just ask of you to invite me to the bris, and if you can, it would be a great honor for me to be a sandik. We are witnesses. That's exactly what happened. Within a year, she had a son. She came to the yeshiva, knocked on the door of Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, who lived in the dormitory all of his life, 3 steps up from the side entrance, and she said she had a child. Tomorrow there's a bris. Please honor us by being the sandik. Chaim Shmulevitz said, unfortunately, it was not printed. It should have been printed, but it wasn't. The oversight of those that printed the great shiur of Moran Rosh Yeshiva. So he said that entire life, every time there was a dispute between 2 people, there was always 2 stories to the issue. It was never one-sided. It was never one person had a position that he was totally right and the other party was totally wrong. Everybody had some sort of legitimacy in their claim. However, once in the history of the world, there was a dispute where one person had an indisputable, overwhelming claim that only that person was right and the other person that was involved in the dispute was wrong totally. And yet this claim, which was incontrovertible, indisputable, was never forwarded by that individual. It makes absolutely no sense. What was that scenario? So the Rosh Hashiva would always say that when Rochel asked Leah for the dudoyim that Reuven brought to his mother, they're very, very unique types of flowers, perhaps. We don't know exactly what it is, a vegetation. So she asked for them. They're very beautiful, so she asked for them. So Leah got upset and angry to a degree. That's the tone. So she said to Rochel, Hama'at kachtech es ishi, v'lokach es gam es dudoi b'ni. Is it a small matter that you have taken away my husband from me, and you also wish to take away my son's dudoyim? So Rochel apologized. She did not mean as a gift. She didn't want Leah to give it to her gratuitously. It was good enough that Leah would give it to her and she would give her proper compensation. And she did. She said, as we see in the Psukim, she offered her a very, very adequate compensation, but she accepted. Said Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, Rochel Imenu had the greatest taina, the greatest claim of all time in any dispute. What should she have said? What is the claim? How dare you throw such arrogant words in my face? How dare you say, Hama'at kachtech es ishi? It's a small matter, you've taken away my husband from me. I gave you a husband. Yaakov was supposed to marry me. You would have absolutely no link, no connection to the home of Yankov if it would not be for me and my courageous, heroic participation with Lavan in deceiving Yankov. We all know that Leah was tachas achupah. Yankov was deceived. Yankov was well aware that Lavan was about to deceive him. So he made a secret code with Rochel that under the chuppah, he will only marry her if she tells him over the secret simonim that he gave over. What are the secret simonim? Shleishet dvarim, a woman who does not fulfill them dies early. That's challah, to be mafresh challah, to separate challah from a isa. Adlokas ner Shabbos and Shmiras Nido. So those were the three halachas that the Gemara tells us. They do the simonim. So Rochel participated, deceived Yankov. She gave over those simonim to Leah. But more than that, it wasn't just the Mesira Simonim in the narrow sense to show that this is Rochel and convince Yankov that it is Rochel under the chuppah. But the Chazal tell us that it was a koil Rochel. We don't understand. Somehow or other she hid herself, and almost to the extent that she was a ventriloquist, and she was able somehow or other to project a voice and have Yankov think that it was her voice. Ventriloquist. Tachas Amito was her voice. So, Mesiras HaSimonim, according to the Chazal, to be understood in the broader sense, she made sure that no stone was unturned, every possibility which he could identify that it was Leah was covered. No alter, everything, every aspect, even the voice. That's why the pasuk says, "Vayihi aboikel." Because the entire Laila, the entire night, it was Rochel. We do not understand how this is possible, but that's what the Chazal say. What we do understand is the apprehension, downright fear that Rochel had that this should succeed. Took no chances, did everything. Difficult to say this, but supernatural to make sure that Yankov is deceived. Because she could have said, I took your husband away from you. I gave you a husband. Chutzpah, what you're saying. So Rochel didn't say. Rochel didn't answer. We don't know why. If she would have said that, Leah would have to apologize. And we have a question that everyone asks. Much later, it says that Rochel, Vayiska lekim es Rochel, Vayishma eleu lekim, Vayiftach es Rachmo, Vatar vatelet bein, Vatoimer osav lekim es Chepose, and she called him Yosef. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu remembered Rochel, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu hearkened to her and her petition and her tefillas, and he opened her womb, and she conceived and bore a son, and she called him Yosef. What does it mean by Yiskar Lekim Es Rochel? So Rashi says, in the name of Chazal, HaKadosh Baruch Hu remember that she gave over the Simonim. So all the commentators say that she gave over the Simonim many, many years ago. We're talking now at a time when Leah already bore Yankov 4 children. And now she's going to conceive another 2 children. Many years ago, they got married. It was at least the 10th anniversary, maybe even the 12th. We don't understand why HaKadosh Baruch Hu all of a sudden now is Vayiskar Likim Es Rochel. Remember Rochel, she gave over to Simon. But that was the schus she needed. That was the merit she needed in order to have a child. So the great Rosh Yeshiva, Zeichet Tzaddik V'Kadosh Livracha, said something which only he could say, and in my humble opinion, it was Beruach HaKodesh. It's my opinion. I was with Reb Chaim Shmulevitz many years. The most outstanding person I ever met. Schus Elvis that I had to be there. So Chaim Shmulevitz answered, you want to know why Rochel didn't answer? How dare you speak to me this way? The opposite is true. Is because she never felt in her feeling that she did anything for Leah. Not she gave Simonim, and not Leah took the Simonim, and not she did anything insofar as participating in all the tricks of Lova. To the extent that she did not feel that she did something, she never expected Leah to say a thank you on the next day. That now Leah is officially married to Yankov, and Yankov is going to keep her as a wife. Say thank you, she never expected it. Yeshikayach, of course she was aware that Rochel was involved with all the tricks of Lavan. She participated in it too. She was given over to Simonim, and obviously Rochel told her, like the Chazal point out, that there's going to be a continuity. He will not be able to find out during the course of the night that it was Leah. We never heard of anything like this. So Reb Chaim Shmulevitz said this, if you really want to know when there was Mesiras HaSimonim, when she gave over the Simonim, it wasn't 10 years ago, before the wedding. It was now, recently, when she proved there was no Mesira, there was no giving, and there was no taking. because Shaloit is Bayesh Achoisa, that her sister should not be embarrassed. So what did she do? In the most natural way, she was Moisa de Simonim to Leah without any feeling that she did a good deed. She acted kindly. She didn't feel she did a thing. So therefore, chronologically, we understand the pasuk. Rochel recently, wasn't too long ago. You know when that was? By the mice of the Dudoyim. Because by the mice of the Dudoyim, she proved beyond any doubt that there was no Mesira. She didn't do a thing. Unbelievable. That was the Yisrael of Reb Chaim Shmulevitz. And Reb Chaim added, B'derech HaPshat. We know that the Imoyas, indeed, the Imoyas, all of the Imoyas were Nevi'os. Should we assume that insofar as they themselves are concerned, so they did not have a Nevuah. Thus, Rochel Imenu, when she gave over the Simonim to Leah, if she did not have Nevuah, she never expected that she'll also be married to Yankov Avinu. So she gave over self-sacrificingly her place to be one of the historical founders of Klal Yisrael. Tremendous sacrifice, without feeling it. Above and beyond our comprehension. But Reb Chaim Shmulevitz added, maybe they had Ruach HaKodesh. They were Nevi'os. So she knew that she will also be a wife of Yankov Avinu after 7 years, 10 years, 3 years, whatever. But she knew ultimately she's also going to join Beis Yankov. So therefore, she didn't sacrifice her position as being one of the Imoyos of Klal Yisrael. Nevertheless, said Reb Chaim, if they were Nevi'os, so they must have also known, Rochel Imenu must have known, that in Chutz La'aretz, says the Ramban, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not exact a punishment for the Isa of marrying two sisters. We all know the Ramban. Why did Rochel have to die when she came to the boundary of Eretz Yisrael? The Ramban said he was there by Kever Rochel. He measured it, and that's the boundary of Eretz Yisrael. Because the Ramban says in Eretz Yisrael, Yankov Avinu was mandated to be Mikayim the Torah. So it's also to marry two sisters. But who is the one that's forbidden? Not the first sister. The first sister you can marry. For prohibition is not to marry the second sister. And if you do marry the second sister, so you chayiv kares. But in Chutz La'aretz it's mutter for Yankov Avinu. It's permissible. Only when they come to Eretz Yisrael it's going to be forbidden. But if she knew that she's also going to be the wife of Yankov, and she will be the Neseres, she will be the second one, which is the transgression, if there is a transgression. But in Chutz La'aretz there was no transgression, but she realized in a short period of time, they're going to come to Eretz Yisrael. And the one that's forbidden, that's the second, will have to die. And she died. So had it gone the way it should have, so Rochel would have been the first. And even if Yankov Avinu would have married Leah afterwards, so Leah would be the one that's prohibited. She would be the second sister. When they come to Eretz Yisrael, she would have to die. So Chaim Shmulevitz said, either she sacrificed her position as one of the Imayas, because she didn't know that she's going to get married, and even if she did know, because she had Ruach HaKodesh, that she must have had Ruach HaKodesh, that she's going to die soon, and she gave over her life in order not to embarrass her sister. She would do an act of embarrassment, but her sister would be embarrassed. And she didn't feel she did a thing. Said the great Rosh Hashiva, Ameir Diki Yisayid. The Bruvin Grozovsky put it down very well, but it's important to hear what Reb Chaim Shmulevitz added. Why was she buried on the boundary? Because Rashi says that Yosef was upset. Why was she not buried in Maras HaMachpelah together with Yaakov? In Hebron, so Yaakov said, because Rochel Imenu will be buried here, Beis Lechem, Bethlehem, because that's going to be the place that the Jewish people go into exile, and she will pray for them, and they will be restored, and they'll all come home, and they'll all be redeemed. So it's her tefillos that are going to bring about the ultimate redemption. Mini kolech mi bechi, v'nayich mi dimo, ki yisocha lepulosech num Hashem, v'shavu bonim gvulam, everybody will come back, all the Jews will return to Eretz Yisrael soon, and it'll all be b'schus Rochel Imenu. Said the great Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, Yosef HaTzadik would have asked the question, but she could also pray. In Maras HaMachpelah and Hebron, no. She only can pray at the exact position and place that her children depart to the bitter exile, because then she'll feel it. She could pray for Maras HaMachpelah, but she won't feel it. The spirit of Rochel Imenu will feel it when she sees her children downtrodden, leaving their home. And Rashi says in Yeshayahu, Yirmiyahu as well, and we say it in Kinnis, the Chazal say, who prays? Who prayed for the return of the exiles, that we should have the ultimate redemption, which we so desperately need today? The wake of such anti-Semitism. Avram Avinu, he made the Akedah, this week's parasha, was willing to makriv his son, 10 nisyanis, 10 terrible, difficult trials, tribulations were administered to him, and he succeeded in all of them. Moshe Rabbeinu begged, he brought about Yitzias Mitzrayim, he brought down the Torah from heaven, and all the tefillas of the Avos HaKadoshim, all of them were rejected. Only Rochel's tefillah, because she was Moshe de Simonim, was accepted. That's what Rashi explains why Kadosh Baruch Hu said, Mini kolet mi bechi, stop crying. You don't have to cry. I accept it, because you did an outstanding feat. So the question Reb Reuven Grozovsky asks, it changes our whole outlook. We would assume that the one that has the merit to bring about the ultimate redemption is somebody like Moshe Rabbeinu, 40 years, day in, day out. He taught Torah, he brought down the Torah, he did great mitzvahs, he did it daily. He's somebody that we could understand to the fact that he did great, outstanding mitzvahs, learned Torah. He's the one that will ultimately be the cause for the redemption. We can understand Avram Avinu gave over everything, his entire life, to proclaim the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He was thrown in the Kivshan Aish, a fiery furnace. He refused to bow down to Avodah Zarah. But a one-timely act of a sister to another sister, in order that she should not be embarrassed, this should be the cause of the Gula. So the great one said, yes, indeed. The Rosh Hashiva said, yeah. Because the Kadosh Baruch Hu does not look at the greatness of the Maisa, Gadlus HaMaisa. No question about it. There's no kiyum to Am Yisrael. There would never have been Am Yisrael Chai, that Jewish people would be a Jewish people entity that would live for eternity if it wouldn't be for Avraham Avinu. They would not have started to be an entity. If it was for Moshe Rabbeinu, they would have been destroyed. So they did great Maisim, and they were all great. Great should be great for the kiyum of Am Yisrael. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at Shleimus HaMaisel. Perfection, moral perfection, ethical perfection. And on that level, whether we understand it or not, said the Rosh Hashiva, Rochel was the most outstanding. Self-sacrifice, something which we cannot comprehend to the extent of the Mesiras HaSimonim with all the details that it consisted of. And she didn't feel she did a thing. So this is the yesod when we have to feel, and when not feeling is the order of the day, and that is the greatest indication of moral and ethical perfection. And Besus Rochel, if we can only do a little bit like Rochel, so we'll also have a source of bringing about the ultimate redemption b'mehera v'yameinu.